Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling strangely defeated, even though you were sure you were right? You replay the argument in your mind again and again, trying to understand how things changed so quickly. At the beginning, you were simply trying to talk about something that bothered you, but somehow, minutes later, the focus had completely shifted. Now you were defending yourself, your intentions, even your sanity, and the original problem had disappeared. This is not a coincidence. Manipulators rarely shout, threaten, or explode with anger. Instead, they rely on simple phrases that quietly reshape the conversation until you begin to doubt yourself. In this video, we're going to break down 8 phrases manipulators commonly use to control conversations, and what those phrases are really doing to your mind. Arguments are supposed to solve problems. In a healthy discussion, both people are trying to understand what happened and find a solution. But manipulation changes the goal of the conversation. The goal is no longer understanding. The goal becomes control. Control of the narrative, control of your emotions, control of how the story is remembered. And the most effective tools for this are not complicated psychological tricks. They are simple sentences, sentences that sound normal, reasonable, sometimes even calm. But behind those words, there is often a strategy designed to slowly push the conversation away from the real issue. Let's take a closer look at the phrases that make this possible. Phrase 1. You're overreacting. This phrase sounds like concern. Sometimes it even sounds like someone trying to calm the situation. But what it really does is invalidate your emotional response. Instead of discussing the behavior that hurt you, the conversation suddenly becomes about whether your reaction is acceptable. Now you're no longer talking about the problem, you're defending your emotions. You start explaining why you feel hurt, why the situation mattered to you, why you're not being unreasonable. And once the conversation becomes about your emotional reaction, the original issue quietly disappears. This is one of the oldest manipulation tactics in conversations. Because if your emotions are framed as the problem, the manipulator never has to address their behavior at all. Phrase 2. That never happened. Few phrases destabilize a conversation faster than this one, because it attacks something fundamental: your memory. Most conversations are private. They are not recorded. There are no witnesses. So when someone confidently says that something never happened, it immediately places you in an impossible position. You remember the event, but you cannot prove it. And that uncertainty creates doubt. You start wondering if maybe you misunderstood something. Maybe you remembered the moment incorrectly. But when this phrase is used repeatedly, it often signals something deeper. This is a classic tactic of psychological manipulation known as gaslighting. And its goal is simple: to slowly weaken your confidence in your own perception of reality. Phrase 3. You always do this. This sentence transforms a specific issue into a character attack. Instead of focusing on a single moment or event, it turns the conversation into a judgment of who you are as a person. The problem is no longer what happened today. Now the conversation is about your personality, your habits, your supposed pattern of behavior. Once that shift happens, defending your point becomes much harder. Because now you're not just discussing a situation, you're defending your identity. Manipulators often use absolute language like always and never, because it exaggerates the situation and creates emotional pressure. And emotional pressure makes people lose clarity. Phrase 4. You're twisting my words. At first glance, this phrase sounds reasonable. After all, misunderstandings happen. But manipulators use this sentence strategically. No matter how clearly you explain what you heard, they can always claim you misunderstood them, even if you repeat their exact words, even if you describe the situation calmly. Suddenly, the conversation becomes a maze. You're trying to explain what you heard. They're redefining what they meant. And the more the meaning shifts, the more exhausting the conversation becomes. Eventually, many people stopped trying to clarify the issue at all, not because the problem was solved, but because the conversation became too confusing to continue. Phrase 5, you're too sensitive. This phrase is closely related to "you're overreacting," but it carries a deeper message. It suggests that the problem is not what happened. The problem is who you are. If you're too sensitive, then your feelings become unreliable, your reactions become exaggerated, and your concerns become dismissible. Over time, hearing this phrase repeatedly can make someone hesitate before expressing their emotions. They begin questioning whether their reactions are legitimate. And once a person starts censoring their own feelings, manipulation becomes much easier, because silence protects the manipulator from accountability. Phrase 6, I was just joking. This phrase often appears after someone says something hurtful. Instead of acknowledging the impact of their words, they frame the situation as humor. Now the focus shifts again. The problem is no longer what they said. The problem is whether you can take a joke. If you continue expressing discomfort, you risk being labeled as overly serious or dramatic. But this tactic allows hurtful comments to exist without responsibility, because humor becomes a shield. And behind that shield, criticism can hide in plain sight. Phrase 7, if you really loved me. This phrase is emotional leverage. It transforms love into obligation. Instead of discussing the issue directly, the manipulator introduces guilt. Now your disagreement is framed as a lack of loyalty or affection. You're no longer debating the situation. You're defending your love. And that emotional pressure can make people abandon their boundaries just to prove they care. But genuine relationships do not require someone to sacrifice their voice in order to prove love. Phrase 8, I'm sorry you feel that way. This sentence sounds like an apology, but it's not. It avoids responsibility entirely. Instead of acknowledging the action that caused harm, the focus shifts again to your reaction. The message hidden inside the sentence is subtle but powerful. Your feelings are your problem, not the result of anything they did. And when this phrase replaces genuine accountability, it allows the same behavior to repeat again and again, because the conversation ends without any real resolution. Manipulation in conversations rarely looks dramatic. It rarely announces itself clearly. Instead, it hides in ordinary phrases repeated over time. Small sentences that slowly change the direction of the conversation, until one day you realize something strange. You're no longer discussing problems. You're constantly defending yourself, your emotions, your memory, your character. But once you learn to recognize these phrases, something important happens. You stop chasing the argument. You stop trying to prove your reality to someone determined to distort it. And the moment you stop playing defense, the manipulation begins to lose its power.